Welcome back to Real Estate 101. Today we're going to continue our discussion on home inspections and talk about some stories from a home inspector, and I'm pleased to be joined once again by Greg McHale of CSS Inspection. Greg, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
All right, Greg, so being a home inspector and being in the industry as long as you've been, I'm pretty sure you've got some stories for us.
Yeah, I do. There's always things that come up in the home inspections. And as a home inspector, we get to see a lot of different things that in a house, it's hard to kind of hide things from us. And sometimes it's just very interesting that you run across.
Okay, so some people seem to feel that, you know, on a new home, they don't need a home inspection. What kind of stories you got for us on new homes?
On new homes, there's actually lots of stories on new homes. From minor issues of, you know, a hole in the roof, holes in walls, exterior walls, to things like the whole hardwood floor has to be replaced. It's not installed properly. Hardwood staircases have to be replaced because they're not installed properly. To issues with mold, actually some serious mold issues. I had a client out in Durham that at the 1-year inspection on the house, went down the basement and the whole ceiling was filled with mold. The whole basement, about 1,000 square feet. The builder had left a hole in the wall for a year with just some insulation on it, fiberglass insulation. Moisture comes through that, and you could just see it going out from that hole in the wall area to the whole basement being done. So I talked to the homeowner about it. They didn't know, and they were quite concerned about it because all the little cracks and crevices of the floor joists, and how do you get it all out, right?
Yeah.
So the builder came out and took a look at it and admitted that they were at fault. And then the builder came and sprayed it with Lysol. So I'm not sure what they think what Lysol is going to do,
right,
but make it smell nice, I guess. I don't know, but it's not going to do anything. And then they said it's not their fault anymore. So the homeowner pursued it further, looked up on the internet what to do about the issues of mold. And the builder ended up having to repair this and pay for it. They spent $8,500, and they used dry ice sandblasting to get all the mold out of the house. Because a house that has mold in it, especially that extensive, when you go to resell it, you've got a problem. Yeah. You got a disclosure, and there's whole big issues with it. I have other houses where the sill plate, which is the area between the foundation and the flooring, about 10 inches, and that's filled with mold because they're not blocking the moisture from coming in. I had a house, brand new house, where I took the insulation away from the sill plate. There's a hole in the sill plate. I reached out and I grabbed the downspout outside. And hard to see from outside, but inside it was very easy to see. I could put my hand right around the downspout.
From the inside of the home.
From the inside of the home. I had another house, new house out in Bowmanville that had a bedroom over top of the garage, and something just tweaked on me to take the cold air return vent off the wall. It was up near the ceiling. So I took it off, I reached up inside the hole, and I grabbed insulation from the attic. So it wasn't blocked. So all the cold air from the attic was coming down in there. But it's worse than that. So we go down in the basement, that cold air return should have been hooked up to the furnace system. In the basement, on the insulation, there was a big magic marker sign stating cold air return, connect. The pipe wasn't even connected to the heating system. So they've been living in this house for a year like this.
And they didn't know.
They didn't know. I have other situations where I actually was doing a PDI for a client, and they had carpeting down. The builder put carpeting down over top of the tiles. Workers come in muddy boots and stuff like that. I lift up the carpeting. All the tiles were broke. Every single one of them broke. Go up in the attic in the house, and about 50 square feet with no insulation. Go down the basement, and the staircase going to the basement, and behind the wall, there's no insulation there. There's no insulation on the garage side. And when I talked to the builder rep, she said, well, we don't talk to you. So so I just want to tell my customer here, I'll show you all the issues I find, and then you can talk to the customer. So I had another one where we had a client that they bought the house. The wife goes upstairs after moving day and fills a soaker tub with water, and has her bath and enjoys it. And comes downstairs and the whole ceiling collapsed because there's no drain hooked up to the tub. So all the water went into the kitchen ceiling on a brand new house. So there's lots of stories on brand new houses. And some of them not very funny really for some people buying houses. Another client right now has got hardwood floors installed incorrectly on 3,000 square feet, and it looks like it's going to have to be all ripped out. This could be a $50,000 job to rip it all out and replace it.
All right, Greg. So how do builders, how do they take some of these things that you find in these homes?
A lot of builders actually are pretty good about it. They don't give me a hard time, don't give the client a hard time. I've had a couple builders actually phone me up afterwards and ask me some questions and just validate. I had some issues with roofs and that, and just validate I walked the roof. Some builders, they don't want to talk to me, and they do everything they possibly can
to avoid you?
To avoid me, to avoid any issues we bring up. And their response is that, oh, it passed the building inspector. Well, it may pass the building inspector, but it violates the building code. And so I've talked to clients and they sit down, you know, I had one client phone the building inspector come back in, they went through the whole list, asked him point blank, does this pass the building code? And the answer was no. Everything on the list was no. It didn't pass the building code. So then why did you as a building inspector allow this? And so the response was, we thought the builder was going to fix it.
All right, and what about resale homes? What kind of things do you find, or what kind of items do you find in resale homes?
Resale homes has quite a wide range. Sometimes in resale homes, even though they may be 15 years old, what I find are builder issues. The homeowner didn't do anything wrong, it came from the builder. And since they didn't get an inspection during their warranty period, they still have these old issues. Some of them are, one client had mold in the attic. It was from the time the house was built. No insulation sometimes in the attic. Other times, on a used resale home, they have issues with people trying to install flooring or trying to do different things, and they're not very handy, or they think they're doing it right, they're not doing it right. So you got those kind of issues. A lot of issues dealing with, say, flooring, electrical. A lot of issues can be done around with plumbing as well. So there's quite a wide range of stuff. Sometimes we had one house that the homeowner had put electrical outlets in the basement. They had used 2x2s to frame the basement, but they weren't actually attached to anything. They were just kind of stuck in place. Put electrical plugs on the wall, and all the wires going from one plug to another plug came out the front. Instead of going through the holes in the box, they all came out the front, connected into the electrical panel by going through the little electrical box by the electrical outlet by the panel, and brought the wire in the front of that. All the way around the whole basement was like this. There was open wires all over the place.
That's another way to do it.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it, is right. They weren't really secured to anything. There was loose wires in the ceiling with switches. You turn the switch on, the wires were not attached to anything. I told the buyer, a young couple with a family, says, don't allow any kids in this basement until you fix this. I just disconnect it all. It's just a real hazard. So don't let anybody go down there.
Right. Okay, so it would seem that older homes present a bigger challenge for home inspectors. What has been your experience? Older homes have a lot of different issues that newer homes wouldn't have. Like most new homes are not built with block foundations anymore. Block foundations have some serious issues around water and cracking. Plus the block has a column inside it, so you basically have a column from the top right down to the bottom. Cold air gets in there, so you have a cold floor. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons as to why that's a big problem. And they're hidden. A lot of times those basements they put some paneling up so you can't see what's on them, and it's very difficult to kind of know ahead of time or during the inspection what condition that's in. The other thing is when older homes could be, I had a house, 100-year-old house up in Brantford, and it had knob and tube wiring. Everybody gets kind of excited about knob and tube wiring. Yeah.
I kind of grew up in old houses in Kingston like that, so it was not a big issue for me. But they had a circuit breaker panel put in, but it was a 1960 circuit breaker panel. I've never even seen one like this before. It had a lot of electrical wire hooked to it. I talked to the purchaser, and then went back to the seller, and anyways, the seller had somebody had ESA come in and do an inspection on the house, and the ESA failed everything that was not knob and tube. Knob and tube was okay.
Really?
Yeah. So I told the client, I said, knob and tube's fine, but the rest of the stuff's going to fail. So it was kind of funny. It's not what you expect to see.
No kidding.
Yeah. So another thing in older homes too is, especially older homes, we have them in Oshawa, we have them here in Toronto. Some of the really older homes built in the 1920s really don't have a concrete floor in the basement. They don't have dirt floors or stone floors. Yeah. So those ones can have a little moisture in them, and a lot of home inspectors are not used to that. That's relatively normal. As long as you keep air flowing through it, then it shouldn't be a big problem to it. But a lot of homes built in the 50s and 60s, there's no insulation. They have very low insulation in the attic. You got this block foundation problems. A lot of those places had 60 amp fuse panels, and some got changed over to circuit breakers, and they're all 2-wire instead of 3-wire. So there's a lot of issues around that people run into, and you know, quote the handyman, trying to fix something up, and it's kind of comical sometimes.
All right, so let's talk about homeowners. Have you ever come across a homeowner that has looked like they may have been trying to hide something?
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Well, I haven't seen as much as I thought it would, but it goes from simple things like putting a carpet on the floor in a kind of odd space. You lift it up and the floor is damaged or it's scratched or whatever. Or paper or a trivet, a pot trivet on a countertop, you lift it up and the countertop's burnt. I had a client out in the Bowmanville area, beautifully renovated basement. It looks gorgeous, and there was some water. I noticed some water underneath the electrical panel, so I told him about it, and he cut the hole in the wall, looked at it, and the prior homeowner had built a little trench on the concrete to direct the water along. I said, well, he knew, right? You have recourse to go back now. There's no way that's like that from the builder, right? Yeah. The worst one I ever came across was one in Oshawa where the house had a major fire in it. It was not disclosed. The selling agent didn't disclose it. And so I had to find evidence of the fire. The neighbor told me about the fire, but all the caulking on one side of the house was all brand new. All the flooring in the house was all new. But the real clincher to it was downstairs in the kitchen. They had tags on the appliances from the fire restoration company that they had left on the appliances. So it was pretty easy for me to say, I think they had a fire in this house. Yeah.
Okay, Greg, so for today's final question, I guess, what is one of the most strangest things you ever encountered in an inspection?
Probably, I got two most strangest. One house I inspected, it just seemed kind of odd. They had a telephone cable come in the house the size of your thumb, and the whole basement was all set up. It looked like a call center. There's a lot of telephone jacks around the wall. There was a table in the center, extra showers put in, and bedrooms. And all the bedrooms had Ethernet cables in strange spots and that. And in the garage, you open the double car garage, you open up the one door, you couldn't go in the garage. There was a big cabinet shelving unit with about 10 inches deep of shelving that. So the buyer asked me about it, and you know, kind of felt that the house was being used for pornography, videotaping, and selling on the internet.
Right.
And I had another house, actually not too far away from that one, and it was being used. The person renting it was being used for peep shows, and so they had. In order for the buyer to go in and look at it, they had to pay $40 to come in and look at the house before she would allow them in. And then they had a room in the basement and had things set up for that, and you couldn't go in that particular room. There was holes in the walls and stuff like that. So there's very strange things you see out there sometimes.
All right, Greg, good stuff. You brought some great stories for us today. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you're buying a home and you'd like to avoid some of these strange horror stories, get in contact with Greg McHale at CSS Inspections. I'm your host, Joe Terceira. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.